As someone who calls myself a communist, as someone who calls myself a 21st century socialist, as someone who sees themselves as continuing the great tradition of Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, Vladimir Lenin, Mao Zedong, Kim Il-sung, Fidel Castro, the great tradition of Hugo Chavez, great tradition of socialism in its many forms that we've seen, great tradition of Daniel Ortega, Nicolas Maduro, the great tradition of Kim Jong-un, the great tradition of Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, and Xi Jinping, the tradition of Che Guevara, the tradition of Ho Chi Minh, the tradition that has existed here on these shores, from Nat Turner to John Brown to Harriet Tubman to Thaddeus Stevens to the abolitionists who fought against slavery, to the suffragists who fought for the rights of women to vote, to those who built the labor movement, the Wobblies, the IWW, Eugene Debs, Mother Bloor, Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, Claudia Jones, to those who built the once beautiful and amazing Communist Party of the United States, William Z. Foster, Gus Hall, Moishe Olgan, Henry Winston, William L. Patterson, to the tradition of the Black Panthers, Huey Newton, Angela Davis, Bobby Seale, to those who organized all throughout U.S. history, fighting for the rights of the downtrodden, fighting for the oppressed, fighting against the unjust wars, fighting for food for hungry children. As someone who sees myself coming from this great tradition of struggle, someone who looks back at giants in the past, there are certain things that I do believe. There are certain things that I profess. There are certain truths that I espouse. And the beliefs, more or less, go like this. I do believe that there is something unique about the human species. That while animals simply interact with their environment, as Frederick Engels taught us, human beings make the environment to serve them. Humans are endowed with certain intelligence, certain ability, certain creative power. As the tool-making species, we have the ability to do things that other species cannot do, and to constantly reinvent our relationship with nature in order to reach a higher plane of existence. But ants have been making their ant farms the same way for millions of years. And beavers have been building their beaver dams the same way for millions of years. But in just 8,000 years, human beings have gone from hunter-gatherers in the woods to space travel and iPhones, 3D printers and artificial intelligence, and that there is something unique about humankind. That we have the ability to reinvent ourselves as a species. We have the ability to constantly perfect our state of existence, to do greater than we have done before, to expand our life expectancy, to expand our population, to expand comfort in life, to connect to higher powers, to understand the objective laws of the universe and history, that human beings are not simply rats in a maze or a science experiment capable only of fleeing from pain and seeking pleasure, but human beings are capable of comprehending the big picture, of asking the big questions, of thinking in a scientific and calculated way, and of moving toward a higher plane of understanding, a higher mode of production, a higher mode of existence. That there is something unique about humanity. There is something unique about humanity. And that it is this creative drive that propelled human beings from hunter-gatherer civilization to slavery and feudalism, to modern-day capitalism, and that starting in 1917, countries that were kept chronically poor and underdeveloped by capitalism and its last monopoly stage of imperialism began to break their chains. And though they were poor, in breaking their chains and breaking out of the domination of Western capitalism and imperialism, they began to lay the foundations of a higher plane of existence. Socialism. A society where the banks and the factories and the major industries and the centers of economic power do not simply function as private entities operating for the profits of those who own them, but rather they function for the good of society, and that the chaos of the market, the anarchy of production can be overcome, and that with the application of human reason and science and morality to the control of the means of production, to the control of the commanding heights of economic power, human creativity and human brilliance can soar to an even higher plane. And that this understanding that was first put forward by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels was validated by the Russian Revolution. And it was further validated when the Soviet Union went from being one of the poorest countries in the world to becoming a superpower, and defeating the Nazis, and inventing space travel, and electrifying the entire country, and wiping out illiteracy, and building the biggest steel mills and the biggest power plants in the world. And while the rest of the planet was having a Great Depression, the whole world looked on at what the Soviet Union was achieving, and that was validation that a higher plane beyond capitalism can be achieved, and that the countries that have been kept in chronic poverty by breaking their chains and adopting the socialist mode of production have lifted themselves up. China today stands as one of the greatest examples of this. The former sick man of Asia, now a towering center of the global economy. 800 million people lifted out of poverty. But the achievements of socialism were seen on the African continent, with Julius Nyerere and African socialism in Tanzania, with Kwame Nkrumah and African socialism in Ghana, with the Islamic socialist government of Libya that provided the highest life expectancy on the African continent, that built the world's largest hydroelectric power plant, that provided jobs to millions of Africans who came to Libya from all over the continent to enjoy the fruits of the socialized oil production apparatus. The achievements of socialism have been proved in Cuba, where a population that faces a horrendous blockade still has a higher life expectancy than the people of Haiti, and the people of Jamaica, and the people of the surrounding Caribbean nations. A healthcare system that is admired all over the world. A literacy volunteer program that brings literacy to people all across the planet. The fruits of socialism have been shown in Nicaragua, where the Sandinista government, on the slogan of Christianity, socialism, and solidarity, have raised millions of people from poverty, have concocted a micro-entrepreneurship program that has enabled millions of people to start their own businesses in coordination with the overall state central plan and raise themselves up and become prosperous. That socialism is the inevitable next stage of human development. That as the productive forces continue to advance under capitalism, the problem of poverty amid plenty persists. The problem exhibits itself with the fact that self-driving cars would lead to mass unemployment, hunger, desperation in the United States, when in a rational society, self-driving cars would be nothing but a great achievement, nothing but something to celebrate. A system where people's only value is their ability to sell their labor power to a capitalist. A system where war is profitable, where drugs and drug addiction is profitable. A system where prisons are profitable. A system where debt and the crippling of an economy is profitable for a small class of bankers. This system must be overcome. And that we can learn from the failure and the problems of the Soviet Union. We can learn from the problems that China has experienced over the years. That 21st century socialism corrects the errors and the problems of the 20th century to move higher to yet another plane. That 21st century socialism does not reject religion, does not deny the existence of God, does not seek to break away people from their spiritual communities. 21st century socialism is not afraid to utilize the strengths of the market to stabilize and boost an overall socialist plan of production. 21st century socialism is not held back by the ideological dogmatism of the past. 21st century socialism provides the many necessary adjustments. And finally, just as socialism in China was different than socialism in Russia, just as socialism in Cuba was different than socialism in China, just as socialism in Venezuela was different than socialism in Cuba, just as socialism in Libya was different than socialism in Nicaragua, and that socialism everywhere is unique and carries with it the unique characteristics of the country in which it originated. And that when we have socialism in the United States, it will not be Korean socialism, it will not be Nicaraguan socialism, Russian socialism, Chinese socialism, Vietnamese socialism. That in China, they refer to their system as socialism with Chinese characteristics. And when socialism comes to America, it will be a socialism with American characteristics, rooted in the contradictions of U.S. society, rooted in the problems we are facing here, crafted to address the injustices and the hardships faced by America in the age of capitalist decay. And that socialism in America will be a continuation of the great tradition of progressive organizers, of anti-racists, of labor activists, of populists, of community organizers, of forces of resistance to empire and exploitation. And that our duty is not to try and get the American people to adopt a foreign ideology. Our duty is not to convince the people of America to hate themselves, but rather to find the good within the American people, to find the John Brown and the Harriet Tubman and the Gus Hall and the Huey Newton blood that flows through the American people's veins and unleash it. Not only to reveal itself, but to assert itself as the rightful leader of a country that is in a deep economic, political, and spiritual crisis. This is what I believe. This is the ideology and the belief system that I put forward on these streams. This is what I teach. This is what I espouse. This is what I profess. And it is the passion with which I espouse these beliefs that propels me to keep going throughout the endless onslaught we face as a society in decay, as truth tellers in a world of lies, of those who advocate love in a world drowning in hate. This is what I believe. This is what I am dedicated to espousing.